I'm Brian Auderer, and this is the Auderer Roadster.
Brian Auderer is a member of the Continental's Car Club. He's one of the founders of the Lone Star Roundup. And he's just one of the good guys that's been doing this thing of ours for a long time. For years, you didn't often see Brian without his little roadster. He bought it out of Florida almost 2 decades ago as a runner that was in dire straits. Since then, the car has gone through numerous transformations. But about 4 or 5 years ago, the little flat motor finally gave up the ghost. Afterwards, it sat dormant in Bryant's garage while he concentrated on other projects. And then, just a few months ago, Brian got the itch to get the Roadster going again. He brought it out to Rex Rod and Chassis with the idea of making a handful of really simple changes, each having the potential to make a huge impact.
So really, all we did was the motor, the windshield stanchions, the dash, the headers, the grill shell, things like that. But by the time it rolled out of the garage, it just looked like a completely different car.
But yeah, it started with the motor. It always starts with the motor.
Having Keith build a flathead for you was pretty huge. And really detailed it, with all the polished parts and the oil pan and everything else. That drivetrain was really where a lot of the focus was. But as we were gigging into it too, there was a few other things that I'd spent a lot of time looking at and had ideas. I started going back and forth. The windshield really sat really tall on it, and talked about cutting that down and leaning the post back and kind of getting it, because it's a channeled car, it sits low anyway, so it just looked out of proportion. And then the dash too was this flat aluminum dash that was in before, and we thought, well, it looked a lot better with like a 32 dash and maybe a different insert. So kept all the gauges in there, just reconfigured that. And of course, it's like you start thinking about what about the front of the car? The lights that were on it before were kind of longer, and thought about getting guide lights for it. And I totally lucked out finding this new old stock guide lights that were still in the box with the paper. They were perfect. Like the box even smelled good. Had little pencil marks on it from the person who had stocked it on the shelf. It's like it had been waiting for me. And another big part of the profile of it, along with building that motor, was the exhaust. And talking with Keith, had this idea about making this really long exhaust, because it's with that channeled car, it also had this roll on the body, so it kind of looks like it was kind of trying to mimic like a belly pan or something on it. And that work was something that again was done who knows when by someone long ago. But that was another thing we didn't want to change about the car, but we kind of wanted to hide it a little bit. And so we made these long Lakes headers that really complemented especially the side view of the car. It kind of gave it this great period look. And it hid that edge of that body roll. And it also sort of made that roll make sense. It looked like you rolled it because you wanted to run the exhaust there. Like they worked together in a really nice way.
And while a lot of these small refinements seem to be just that, small, he spent a lot of hours in the shop figuring them out, adjusting things here and there. We kept a daily build thread on the hand, and unbeknownst to us, Gary Howard was following along. Yes, that Gary Howard. And just as we were wrapping up the build, Gary sent a text to Brian. He wanted to paint the car. All of us were beside ourselves with excitement.
He's known me and known that car since, the very first days. And, he was like, man, I don't know what your plans are for if you're going to paint the car, but I'd love to be involved, with the project. And I was just like, holy shit.
And so with the short deadline, Gary got to work. In a matter of just a few weeks, and without even lifting the body off the chassis, Gary was able to quite literally polish a turd. What was once a pretty rough example of a survivor hot rod turned into an impressively straight roadster, capable of parking next to just about any car at this year's Lone Star Roundup. Brian's Roadster was no longer flat black. It was now a unique shade of red, and shiny.
When it rolled out of his shop, it was a lot like when the car rolled out of Keith's shop. You know, those few changes that we made here, the change in the color of that car when it rolled out really transformed it all over again.
Now that the Roadster is done, it's hard not to feel just a little bit nostalgic. Back in the day, Brian and the Roadster came together as a package of sorts, and it's oddly comforting to see them driving around Central Texas together again. A lot of pals have been made with this little Roadster.
It really brings back some cool memories and where that car has kind of taken me, and the people I've gotten to know over the years, from, you know, becoming really good friends with Steve, getting to know Von Franco, getting to know Jimmy White, you know, and then getting to know Keith and him moving to Texas and having the opportunity to kind of work with him on this stuff, or having Gary, you know, painting that car when he remembers. I think he texted me something about, like, yeah, I remember how pitiful that car looked when you first got it. It was something really funny like that. So it's like, it's cool to have, you know, my memories of it, and even the memories of the people that, you know, who've gotten involved with it now, that kind of go back for years too, that are like, wow, that's that car. I can't believe that's the same car. Because they've seen, you know, they've seen it change over the years too. But now it's like this really cool, you know, now it's this, you know, refined version of it. It's still the same car in some ways, but in a lot of ways it's completely different. And now, you know, it kind of reflects where I'm at now.
Yeah.